Hi, I'm Sharon Cable that played basketball here in 1971 through 75. However, we did not have a team my junior year, so I have a year of eligibility left. And I played volleyball here for all 4 years, 71 to 75. Came back as a head coach after a year in grad school and began my coaching career here in 76 and was here 11 years through 87. And it was Sharon Fanning at that time. When I finished undergraduate school, Coach Pfeiffer had asked me about teaching at Notre Dame. But then as I looked at grad school and felt like that I would like to coach in college, I was just a part of the process. I was a kid from East Lake from Cable's Restaurant and just went with the flow. But grad school, I had the opportunity at Tennessee and Memphis and LSU. And Tennessee was, it was close and really didn't know Pat. Then when you got there and you saw Title IX kick in, because in 76 is when a lot of physical education programs handed it over to athletics programs. And a lot of the coaches who had been under, the auspices of physical education now were full-time coaches. So that was just, I think, the year. That was the first year Pat was in, under the athletics umbrella. So I was just blessed to be available whenever that opportunity happened. I guess they saw a young coach with a program that was just starting to develop, and somehow I was blessed to have that opportunity. But I'm thankful for it. Great place to get started and a great place to have those memories and to see, just to see what they're doing now. I am so proud and realize how thankful that I am and blessed to have had the opportunity through UT Chattanooga.
Hi, I'm Janet Tate, and I'm a Lady Moc, former Lady Moc, and I was here in 1976 through 79. Played for Grace Keith and Sharon Fanning. I did not know Sharon before I knew of her. All I knew is that she was a grad assistant, I think, under Pat at UT. She was coming in, she was younger. She'd never coached, I don't think, anything ever. So that was interesting, because I was going to be a coach, when I grew up.
She was an excellent, basketball player, softball player, fast pitch softball player. We played
softball together.
The thing I liked about Sharon is that she had, I guess it was a little more knowledge of the 5-on-5 because she'd been around Pat. Super lots of different defenses going on that she called out for, full court presses, half court presses, a man-to-man run and jump. We'd never heard of that, man-to-man run and jump. And she's trying to explain the concept about what you want to do with it. And you might ask her a question, well, is this my coverage or her coverage? And if she didn't know the answer, she would tell you she didn't know. She says, but I'll find out. And the next day she'd come in and she'd tell you how that works. So I like that about her. She's not going to bluff you. She's going to tell you straight up about it. And I think that was the thing with Sharon, a very direct approach.
The full court press was something that she really honed in on for us. We really like that, because even though we weren't tall, most of us were fast. So not that we were great at it in the beginning, but over time, it was like, oh, okay, we got it.
X's and O's are the same, whether a woman's talking about them or whether a man's talking about them. And so I would relay it as an athlete. I played the game like a basketball player, volleyball player, softball player, hopefully like an athlete. And I tried to coach the game, the same way as a coach.
Sharon developed more of a, I don't want to say more structured because Grace was very structured, but she probably learned so much from Pat, from Pat Head at the time.
Yeah.
So when she came back, we had many more plays. She did what she called a power rating. So she took all your numbers of, from
all your
steals,
stats and stuff,
every
yeah.
stat that you could have, and formulated that into a power rating. And then she would hand that out to every player. This was for every game. So you knew where you stood in the, the pecking order of you didn't want to be the last person on the list by any means, you know. But of course, she was young too. You know, Sharon herself was just still young, and her career was just starting.
When I came back, I was the first full-time coach, and so I think that probably was a big difference to have a full-time coach that was under athletics, and I was coordinator of women's athletics as well. You saw a small recruiting budget. You know, if it was a couple $1,000s, then that was initially what I remember. We still drove the vans, and you know, it was a very progressive thing. There were no full-time assistants, and I had after a semester, I'm believing that it was that long, then I brought in sort of like a graduate assistant, student assistant, and that was the assistant coach, but it was still part-time. Donna Nuri was the first assistant coach. And then it was probably a year or two out, 3 years, that I got a full-time assistant coach to me. So that was progression. It went from no scholarships to a couple of partial scholarships to 1 full to 2 fulls, and progressed up. So it was from the time I began here through the time that I left. There was progression along the way.
I remember Sharon saying, you know, you got to, if you can't win, you won't get money, which is true. You know, you got to draw the crowds. You know, you got to bring in the revenue. You know, it takes a long time. That, you know, you think about it with a brand new program starting up. You know, for women's basketball here, it took years, really.
Right. And I think they expected her to, you know, lift it up, so to speak. You know, I think that was the change, and they knew she had been with Pat Head, and, you know, we're doing the catch-up thing here, and expected a whole lot of Sharon, probably, you know, more than what she realized that they were going, you know, to expect of her. So I think there was a lot of pressure there.
Before it was really AIAW, it was TCWSF, Tennessee College and Women's Sports Federation. And so we were all in a pool of just state. That was our competition, was within that state. And then AIAW, after the state, that was the it on that state tournament. So there wasn't anything beyond that, as I remember. And then the Southern Conference, as our men got into the Southern Conference, they didn't acknowledge the women at the time, but we had unofficial tournaments where Southern Conference, it wasn't called maybe a Southern Conference tournament, but for 2 or 3 years we did that. And I think that's the building on that success, because we won those tournaments. And then when the SEC picked up their league, when the Southern Conference picked up their league, and the NCAA came in, there were only 32 teams, I suppose, that went into it. And the Southern Conference didn't have an automatic bid, and so you're going to have to go in at large. And I mean, in '84, that team, we were maybe even ranked, or beat a ranked team, I guess, for the first time, and we did not get into the NCAA, but we had an opportunity to, you know, to go to the NWIT that year. But I think seeing just the emphasis put on it and all teams gathering for a championship, those were all, you know, great times of progression for us. It was another game, though, for us, whether you were playing in a tournament or with 4 teams, or whether you were playing just a game in a season or an unofficial tournament before. You know, winning was always a key, and just striving and being a part of success. So to me, it was great to see that recognition. And I can remember, I don't know the year, but where the women actually went to the Southern Conference meeting, you know, at the end of that year, with all the athletic directors. And, you know, those were things, it's like every year something transpired that included women more. I love people who compete. So anybody that's a fierce competitor that loves to win, then that's the player that I would love to just be around.
Denise Powers is silk. That's Denise Powers. And when I came here, she was 1 year ahead of me. And And I can remember the offices used to be in like a trailer or something across the parking lot. Yeah. And I was going into Sharon's office, and Denise, it was in the summer, and Denise was sitting on the steps with a basketball, and she was taking a break, and she used to work out like 8 hours a day in the summer. And I mean, she was so committed, and there's no prettier jump shot than Denise Powers. It's so effortless. She was really great to have as a teammate. She really was.
Denise Powers may be, and still is, one of the best athletes that I ever coached. She was only about 5'8". Denise held her own. I can remember, she walked on, and I can remember her saying, "Coach, what's it going to take to be an All-American?" And I said, 2 or 3 hours a day, 4 or 5 days a week when everybody else is sitting inside. And she really took that to heart. But just so smooth, that's the word. Could rebound with the best of them at 5'8" or 5'9", whatever. Her size made no difference because she had a just sweet shot and could defend and rebound and run and just so athletic and a winner. Again, that's my blessing. I can remember Will Stern, I give him the credit, telling me, "We've got a player over here I've seen, and he may have coached her coming up in elementary, junior high, somewhere there, but he said, you need to get her, you need to get her." But that just tremendous, tremendous basketball player, one of the best athletes that I ever coached.
My name is Karen Mills, and I was a Lady Moc from 1978 to 1981. My height has always been a factor. I've always been told I was too short to play, and that helped motivate me in many ways. But Sharon was always, no, she never acted like, "I think you're too small." I mean, she showed confidence in me from day one. She was tough. She really cared about her players. She was an excellent teacher. She also gave me a lot of freedom with running the team. We had very much a connection in terms of what needed to happen on the floor, and she put a lot of faith in me and my ability to carry it out. And but she was tough, and she also would put me in the game and let me play unless I was really having a bad game. She didn't platoon. She let the players that were doing well, she'd give us a rest, but she let us play. And I think we all appreciated that, because I know a lot of coaches that do kind of platoon the girls, and I want to play till I drop. And so she let me, and many times I did drop or foul out.
In the 4 years that I coached Karen, one time we were playing Tennessee, and Holly wasn't hitting 30% or something from the field maybe that year.
And the game plan was to let Holly beat us, make Holly beat us, Holly Worley, because she wasn't a shooter. She ran the team. She was ball handler, passer. And shooting was not her strong suit. And so, we said, well, if they're going to beat us, Holly's going to do it.
She may have hit 42, 45% against us, but she did score because we were going to try to help out on the rest of the kids and, might give her maybe a green light.
We almost beat Tennessee in that game, and, we came so close, but never actually beat them during the time I played.
But that game, Karen slipped or something, and Holly may have stolen the ball or got the ball loose once. But in all those other years, nobody ever took the ball from her. And she averaged maybe 11 assists or so. I think she had 17, 19. I can't remember if she had over 20 in a game. But she led the nation in assists the year that Nancy Lieberman was a senior, and this would have been Karen's maybe junior year, I'm not sure. And so she was a tremendous ball handler. But from an offensive standpoint, I didn't have to do as much because she could break somebody down. She'd take it baseline. She'd always find the right person at the right time. So if you keep it simple, my husband tells me all you have to do is score more points than the other team. And so Karen was a ball player that accommodated that. You let her make the plays.
We used to beat Georgia. We beat Clemson. We beat all these Division I teams. We were very competitive.
In terms of schedule from the AIW to the NCAA, from our perspective, it ended up with more teams on the women's side in the Southern Conference at one point. So it expanded the schedule. I can remember, though, we had I don't know, 5 or 6, seems like SEC teams that were on our schedule or other ACC teams. And so I always felt like it was a challenging schedule because it always prepared us better, for the Southern Conference tournament. And I think that's one of the reasons that we had success with it, was the competition that we played outside of the league. Success breeds success. So the more success we had, we started season tickets. At one point, I know Coach Wilkes, he didn't know if it would work, but it was a great opportunity. So that we saw that take place. We saw NC State come in here and play on New Year's Eve and had a huge crowd. I mean, it was over 2,000 on a New Year's Eve for a team that was ranked, 2 or 3 in the country at the time. And so you saw things progress, even though it may have been slowly. It continued each year to get better, and I think that there was more respect for the program. The fans knew, the community knew more about what was happening with women's basketball, and we were blessed to have good support. The '84 team had great balance. You had a point guard and a backup point guard, but they knew who needed the ball, where they needed the ball, when they needed the ball. You had an athletic 2, you had a rebounding 3 that was a scorer that knew. These kids were smart, they just knew the game. You had Horsey at a 4 and Chairs at a 5 that could get up and down the floor as quick as anybody in the country. And so that was a great group, but behind that, the backups, you had every position. Laura McCord could come in at the guard and guard anybody and make it really uncomfortable on them. And Eleanor Benson, Deatrice Hill. It was great depth. We just had a lot of confidence, or the kids did. And it was a credit to them because there was leadership throughout that team. There was work ethic. It was really a fun basketball team. The other thing that happened that year, though, was the Florida tournament. And we were playing in the finals of the tournament, and it was sort of back and forth. And we had the ball out of bounds opposite, and it might have been 2 or 3 seconds to go, and we were down 1. And timeout, we called offense. I subbed Gabby in because we were out of bounds opposite, so full length of the court, we had to get the ball down. We stacked it. It was something that Larry Joe Inman had run. I had seen him run years ago. But anyways, Gabby made the perfect pass. Chairs had come up from the bottom to catch the ball up top of the key and goes up for the shot. So we had a clear shot, and then the whistle blows. And Georgianne Wells was under the bucket, whatever. And I thought, and this is as the buzzer expires, and I thought that, she had gotten fouled. We would be at the free throw line shooting probably 2, because there was no 3-point shot, I don't think, at the time. And we were down 1. They called goaltending, and we won the game on a goaltending call. And I don't know if that has ever been done in the women's game, but you do need to check that. And so it was over. The coach is coming to me to try to follow me to the locker room to protest the game. It used to be you had, I don't know how many minutes or whatever after a game that you could protest a call. And it could be challenged anyways at that point. But, the game was over. Followed us back to the parking lot of the hotel because I think it was still within maybe a 30-minute time limit or whatever, and wanted us, to protest. Coach, the game is over. That was against West Virginia. But, the little wins along the way, and of course a big win like that, they were things that just carried us over into these other wins, which would have been the Clemson game. And to be in the arena and to win a game against a ranked opponent, obviously that would help carry us in and help us through the regular league games. Well, success breeds success. I had thought that we could get into the NCAA tournament. And I think then, because of the limit on the number of teams in it, then a lot of your larger conferences ended up getting an at-large bid, and some of your smaller conferences didn't get the nod. But I would have, I'm sure at that time, if I were to reflect back, I would have been disappointed. However, I was thrilled for our opportunity. When we did go to the NWIT, we flew for the first time ever. And I can remember some folks there, greeting or being there for us as we left and greeting us when we came back. And we were down, to Vanderbilt. I mean, it was back and forth in the finals. And it was a one, I think it was a one possession game. And Coach Arnold used to run for Russ Shaney. So it was like a time and score to get a really good shot for Tina Cheers at the free throw line. And we ran rotation. And Chris McClure got the down screen. Tina would screen across for Horsey, and then Chris McClure would down screen for her. She came up top, got the ball, perfect pass, and had a wide open shot. Chris went down to rebound position. Horsey went down to rebound position. Somehow Tina passed it to Chris. She was a little closer. Chris wasn't ready for the pass. And anyways, we missed on that one, but we were in an opportunity. We had an opportunity to win the game. And that's what you try to do from a coaching perspective, is put your team in a position to win.
Well, first coming in, of course, I was a little nervous. The team that they had before, that was the team that was going to push me and mold me into what I needed to be as a freshman. It was competitive, but I got in there and did what I had to do, and I didn't let Coach Fanning down, so to speak.
Regina, get her the ball, because she knew how to score. And even though she was, 5'10"-ish or so, she'll tell you that she is the best scorer. Her shot was high. She could put the ball on the floor to get around people. It was just one of those players that does things. Like, you can't teach the Karens and the Denises and the Kirks, because they have that knack. They have just that and then some, that a coach just sits and admires and watches them play.
She's just an outstanding athlete and loved the game. Loved the game. She would stay here during the summer and play with the guys. They played a lot of pickup games during the summer with the men, and just a tremendous athlete and a tremendous hard worker.
So that was my blessing to coach Regina Kirk. And how many points, I don't remember what she averaged, but I know that she was one of the best offensive players and the best back to the bucket players that I ever coached. First of all, you don't have a lot of coaches leave in the middle of something. And so when Coach Henry had the opportunity that he had, then who are you going to find that's available? And Coach Parrott had a family situation that was challenging for him, and he was available then.
My wife passed away unexpectedly in '86. And so at that time, her assistant coach, Ken Henry, was wanting to leave. He had an opportunity, I think, to go to another school. And so they let me out of my contract at Chattanooga, and Sharon won the assistant coach.
And so, as in any circumstance, you call a lot of folks that probably know someone, and his name came up numerous times, and so I made the call.
And you remember David Jenkins from the Free Press? He had recommended me, and I came up here and talked to Sharon, and so I came in the middle of the year, really. It was in January.
He was such a respectful coach and a positive person and attentive person to just the communication that took place initially, and I just trusted that. And obviously it worked out.
We hit it off really well, though. I mean, she was an outstanding coach, and of course I knew all about her and how good they were and what a great job she did. And so we hit it off really well. Personally, we got along really well, and it was just a good opportunity for me to leave where I was at because of the situation I was in, and so it turned out really well.
Hi, I'm Ann Wee Hunt. I was a student athletic trainer, and I worked with women's basketball team from 1986 until 1989. And I've been the women's basketball SID since 2004 until 2023. When I was a little kid, probably about 9 years old, my sister and I received scholarships to come to our basketball camps here that Sharon Fanning ran. I had thought I might play basketball for her. And so I got here in 1986 as an athletic trainer. And we had an athletic trainer for women's basketball, and I had assisted him. Coach May, who was the head athletic trainer, came to me and said, "Hey, Coach Fanning said you could walk on the team if you want." And I thought about it, and it would have been great, but I chose to stay as the athletic trainer and had a great time, and that ended up being Sharon's last year as our head coach.
to leave was a challenge. And UT Chattanooga, I guess a goal at that time in my life growing up, I would want to be the Margaret Wade who was at Delta State. That's what I saw was AIW championships growing up, and we were just now getting into the NCAA piece, but I felt like I would be here as long as I could be here. And then I remember when I went to Kentucky, and Cliff Hagan, the AD at the time, had offered the position, and I came back to talk to Coach Wilkes, and he said, "You got to take it." I mean, he was encouraging, and just so I was blessed to have his blessing at the time, and then to leave that team though. So Coach Parrott had just come in, and then you had recruited 6 players, and I can remember making the call to the team from Mr. Hagan's home because I had stayed with them while I was up there for the visit, and I mean it was tough. It was tough because this is your home. This is where your roots are. It's something that you've been a part of and watching it grow. So it was probably at that time in my life the most difficult decision that I had made.
It was after basketball season. It was sometime during the spring. I want to think around, maybe around April or May, something like that. Sharon informed me that, she had an opportunity to go up there for an interview. She hadn't got the job yet, and so that was in the spring of '87. She actually took me to Kentucky for an interview, and she was trying to hire me to go be her assistant coach at Kentucky. And at that time, I just I knew I had an opportunity to maybe become the head coach here, and I wanted to stay close to home with my family.
When a coach leaves, and all the administration needs to choose the person that's right for them at the time that they can work with. And so obviously it had been a short period of time, and I think it would have been very difficult not to hire someone who had been successful and had done a good job here.
When Sharon left, Coach Wilkes, the AD at the time, said that I would have a chance to be elevated. I mean, I just came in there as assistant coach from high school, no experience in the collegiate level. So he started bringing in interviewers. And so he brought in some folks, he brought in Brenda Paul from Mississippi State, and brought in a coach from Indiana. I think he brought in a coach from DePaul, and really they looked at the situation financially, and really nobody basically wanted the job. And so Coach Wilkes told me, and I understood, he said, if we hire a lady, he said, I'm gonna make sure that they keep you on as their assistant. But if we hire a guy, you gotta go. And I understood that. So finally it rocked along there, and so nobody wanted the job basically. And I'd already been hired at a high school in Georgia, actually where I played basketball. And so I told Coach Wilkes one day, I said, look, I'm not gonna leave those people I need to know something. So that was during the middle of the summer. I had conducted all the camps and done all the work and recruiting and stuff, by myself. And so Coach Wilkes called me the next day, and he said, what are you wearing? And I told him, I said, well, whatever I had on that day. He said, get your rear end up here to the chancellor's office. We ought to make a photo. You've been hired. That's how I learned how I was hired.
So when I came, we played in McClellan most of our games, and we could play here, but we preferred to play over in McClellan.
McClellan was very different then than it is now. There was a lot more seating. The arena was here, but it was men's basketball. Women's basketball was still in McClellan, but it was their space.
We practiced there, but game day, that was it. I mean, I thought we had pretty big crowds.
When I first got there, it was like, oh my gosh, it's kind of like what walking into the arena is now. But I remember looking around thinking, this is where I'm going to play.
But the seats spread out on the end zones into the lobby and into the auxiliary gym.
But we had a big crowd, and a lot of the students used to support us a lot. That's why we like to play there. Just the atmosphere, and it was close, and it looked like you had like a big crowd.
Even though when I look back on it, McClellan's probably smaller than my high school gym, but it was college. It had all of the, at the time, the Lady Mocs things around it, but it felt intimate because we would pack that gym. It felt like there was like everybody on campus was there, all of our parents and things, and our fans were there.
When you're in a gym, it's just you feel closed in and like family close together.
So it was the first games for me. I remember overwhelming. I think I shook, literally, probably almost the entire game. But it was a big deal. So I'm walking out onto this stage where everybody's looking. It was pretty overwhelming and scary initially.
Craig Parrott was country. And when he said something, you better pay attention.
He was very different from Sharon. Whereas she was intense, his intensity was kind of scary in a different way. And not a bad way, but a very different way. It was, you didn't want to mess up too bad. Because really, you thought maybe I'm going to be sitting on the bench.
So when I got to UTC, you know, you meet the coach that come to your house, and then you meet the one at practice, totally different. When I got here, we would go to practice, and oh my God, he would yell and fuss. And so it was hard for me because coming from the program we had, it wasn't all that strength. So that first year, I about died. I love Coach Parrott. As a person, Coach Parrott was awesome. As a coach, he's one of them old school coaches, and yes, he did cuss 24/7.
Craig had that temperament of good old country boy temperament, and he just said it like it was. He told it like it was.
I think back in the day, those are the type of coaches you had, you know what I'm saying, that they cuss and fuss or whatever. But like I said, I think he was a really good person. But I remember by being, you know, so after my freshman year, you know, I started every year. So by you being the I ain't gonna say star player, but you starting, you get blamed for everything. So when we go in the locker room, I think it used to be like 2 benches there. I used to always try to sit in the back and hide because I knew he was gonna fuss at me and be in my face fussing all the time.
Coach Parrott was equally as hard on us. Coach Parrott was like any other great coach, you know, even in high school, he would scream and yell and fuss. But again, he also I always knew he wanted the best for us, but he was rough.
He's probably one of the smoothest coaches from the standpoint of, yes, he could get upset, but he handled it with class. He handled it with dignity. And he didn't let it eat at him. Once it was over and done, on to the next project.
He gave me a true sense of what being an adult athlete was, but he was equally as hard on us on the court as he was. He made sure we were in class. Not going to class was not an option for us. He made sure academically we were as strong as we were athletically. He had us in the gym. He had us in the weight room. We needed training services. We were that. He wanted us to stay focused. So this was like making sure we didn't get our mind, you know, we were young college students, you know, we thought guys, you know, we're partying and all that thing. And he understood that we needed that part of life, but he wanted us to have that balance. So he made sure he kept his eyes on us. We turn around in class, there's Coach Parrott, in the class, or we're in the training room and he's making sure that we're doing what we were supposed to do. So that coaching staff during that time, they made us work for it. There was nothing easy about playing at UTC. It was very enjoyable, and again, it was very family oriented, and you always knew you were cared about. But it was tough.
But Craig knew the game. He knew how to bring it out of him. In fact, he led us to 2 regular season titles, and he also took us to the first NCAA tournament for any Southern Conference team.
Well, that's when the Southern Conference obtained an automatic bid. So we were, I think we ended up the season 3rd in the conference, and we played Appalachian State in a semifinal game, and they were really good. They were loaded, and they were expected to beat us, handedly. And we just had one of those games where we upset them. I think back about that game, I kind of felt sorry for those kids, because they had been there and they were so successful, and it's just a big, big upset. And then we played Furman for the championship game and beat a good Furman team. So it was just everything fell into place, that during the tournament. So because we won the tournament, we had an automatic bid, and kids were so excited about maybe where we're going to get to travel. We may not have to drive in a van. We might get meal money, you know. So we got to go to Athens, Georgia. So that was kind of a downer into the fact that we didn't get to travel and do some things the kids enjoyed, but we got to play a really, really good team in University of Georgia. So I just remember that being a special team, a special group of young ladies that worked really, really hard together, and we were young. And it just, you know, everything fell into place at the tournament.
We were the first team to advance to the NCAA. And then he went back a few years later. So he did 2 NCAA tournaments.
Yeah, I think to say excitement, it was a feeling I know I'd never felt. I don't think I'd ever even dreamed of anything like that. Like over the moon would probably be a better statement, but it was again never seeing that many people that to come. And they weren't all for us. They were for other schools too. But just walking in and looking around to see all of those people there, to see we saw. I remember going into that tournament going into that game thinking these are women that were playing for Clemson that I would see on television playing, on various weeks. These were big time, folks that we knew that would go professional. And so the way to have our scrappy team, because we were much smaller, because again at the time Kim was there. Kim was probably, I think she's probably 5'10", 10 and a half or something like that. They had their inside folks were 6'3", 6'4". Kim like battled her way into that because and Tammy was there as well. They never stopped. We never stopped working. Anita and all those and all of us. No, we never stopped because at this point we knew it was go big or go home. If we lost, we were going home. If we won, we got to go further. So we thought, we give it all we got.
So I'm not the one to ask because I was mad because I sprained my ankle. We could have won that. We was that close. It was a big thing. I think we was more disappointed that we didn't go nowhere far. But I think we had a great chance of winning that year. We did, and we were a good team.
Coach Parrott, I think, coached us tougher than ever. And I mean, when I say tough, I don't mean, in a brash kind of way. I mean in a way like, okay, you have nothing else to lose. They don't think you're gonna win. They see you as the underdog. So why not go out and give it everything we have? It's the end of the season, so you're always dealing with injuries because you've played because again, remember the Southern Conference itself was a tough conference. So there when you finally get there, you get to the end of that, you're cutting down the net and things from that game, and you get to Clemson, you were giving it all you have.
Tracy Barnett was one of our better shooters from here in Chattanooga, played at Boyd Buchanan. And Tracy got hurt in one of our, I don't know if it's our last home game, I think it was, and she got hurt. And I always felt like if Tracy had been available, if Kim hadn't sprained her ankle, we would have beaten Clemson. We were the better team.
Nobody thought that we would win, and I think I'm sure Clemson went into the game thinking the same thing. Oh, this is a small school. We just got to get past them to get to the next round.
I mean, we all felt that we were the better team, and we had opportunities toward the end of the game really to beat them, and we couldn't close the deal.
It was a tough game. I remember being like girls, those of us feel, having bruises and things like that. It was a very hard fought game. It was probably one of the hardest fought games, ever. That I can remember being played during the time I was here.
We lost, but that score was real close. They were scared. We were scaring them.
But they went on to play West Virginia that year, and I think they ended up beating West Virginia by 1 or 2 points. So I felt like that was a team that we had that could probably win on pretty far in the NCAA tournament.
I think that was one of the proudest moments I've had, in the program, to see the way we played there.
He fostered great relationships with his players that he brought in.
I think that's what it's all about. When you're coaching, if you don't have a good relationship with that student athlete, you're not going to be successful. They have to respect you, and when you're critical of them and you're getting on their rear end, you know, they have to know you're doing it from a position of trying to make the team better and trying to make them better as individuals. That's what coaching's all about. You know, relationship that you have with the student athletes. If you don't have that, you're not going to be in the business very long.
He was somebody you had to adapt to. And I tell you what mellowed you down was Coach Kemp. If it wasn't for Coach Kemp, he probably wouldn't have had no players.
I'm going to try to talk about Karen without getting choked up. It'd be kind of hard. When I first got the job here, I knew who I wanted to be my assistant. And Karen was over at Mississippi State at the time. And Karen, this is kind of really wild, but Karen's daddy and my daddy were friends. Her family and Karen, they're all from Chatsworth, Georgia, right down the road from here. So we had a connection. And so we brought Karen in, and you know, right from the beginning, she and I were just like that.
Oh man, she was awesome. I think that was his backbone.
And she was a great recruiter.
She felt like family. She felt like a big sister or an aunt or something like that. She was my position coach when I first got here. She was hard. Oh my gosh, she was she was so hard on us. But she wanted the best for us. Like she worked us hard, but she loved on us hard. And it wasn't just as a coach, but her family. You know, her husband, and again, you know, other family. Like I grew up knowing her aunts and things like that. So they've all made us feel like family off the court, as well as we did on the court. But she was tough on us. She wanted us to be great, but she pushed me. She never let me just be mediocre.
And I'm telling you now, when Karen Kemp left and got the job at ETSU, our recruiting here when I was a coach never was the same. And I remembered when she got the job at ETSU, and I got the phone call from the coach at ETSU to let me know that they were going to hire Karen. I remember getting off the phone and almost coming to tears, because I was happy for her, but I knew what it was going to do with our program, because you can't replace a Karen Kemp. You just can't. Somebody I really miss. And when she passed away, we had this is the last time we kind of got together, some of the players. You know, it's a sad occasion, but we kind of embraced each other, and it was good. So
now talking about her now, you know, it makes it hard, knowing that, you know, she's not still around. But I will say she probably made me. She was one of those people that made me the person that I am today.
The legacy that women's basketball has here at UTC, I think will kind of speak for itself. The success of the coaches that I've had, the programs, the student athletes that we've had here at UTC, I think we've come a long ways, as they say. You know, just think about of all the great athletes that were here before I became a coach, you know, and all the conference championships and great teams that Coach Fanning had, and Coach Moore and Coach Foster down through the years. It's nice to be a part of that. You know, I feel kind of lucky, very, very lucky and very fortunate to be a part of this program.